The evening rush hour at Riverside Cafe had just begun when something happened that made the entire restaurant fall into breathless silence. It started with a sharp, heartbreaking yelp, a tiny German Shepherd puppy crying out in pain. Every head turned, glasses stopped midair, and conversations froze. And right in the center of that chaos, a young waitress named Lena was crouched over a trembling puppy, shielding it with her own body. While a wealthy couple towered above her, their faces twisted with disgust and anger. Before anyone could make sense of what was happening, another sound followed, the heavy steps of a man standing up from the far corner table. A man no one had noticed until that moment, a man with a presence that could silence a storm. He was a Navy SEAL, and he had seen everything. If you believe in kindness, compassion, and protecting the innocent, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It motivates us to bring more powerful stories to you. The story of how things escalated to this moment began long before that scream. Lena had always been a quiet, gentle soul, working double shifts at the cafe to support her younger brother after their parents passed away. Her life was simple: wake up early, work all day, return home exhausted, and repeat. But she found love in little things: the smell of coffee, the warmth of morning light, and the tiny German Shepherd puppy she found abandoned behind the cafe 2 weeks earlier. The puppy was barely alive when she discovered him, skinny, shivering, and covered in dirt. She wrapped him in her apron, brought him inside, and fed him scraps just to keep him alive. She named him Scout because even in his weakness, his eyes were alert, scanning everything like a brave little guardian. The cafe owner allowed Scout to stay behind the counter in a small basket, as long as he didn't disturb customers. But everything changed when the Malverns walked in. Harold and Cassandra Malvern were known in town for two things: their money and their arrogance. They didn't walk into spaces. They arrived, like royalty, expecting the world to make way. Tonight was no different. Cassandra's diamond necklace sparkled like she carried a chandelier on her neck, and Harold's suit probably cost more than Lena's monthly rent. Lena approached them politely, as she did with every customer. But Cassandra's eyes narrowed even before Lena spoke. The problem wasn't Lena. It was the tiny nose of Scout peeking out from behind the counter. Cassandra pointed sharply. "What is that dog doing in here?" Lena immediately apologized, gently lifting Scout into her arms. "He's just a rescue puppy, ma'am. He won't bother anyone. I'll keep him with me." But Cassandra stepped back as if Lena were holding a bomb. "I don't want fur near my food. Remove it." Harold chimed in. "This is unacceptable service. Dogs are filthy." Their voices grew loud enough that several customers turned to look. Lena felt her throat tighten with embarrassment. She clutched Scout protectively and apologized again, trying to soothe the situation. But then Scout let out a tiny sneeze, soft and innocent, and Cassandra snapped. She lunged forward, kicking toward the puppy with her high heel as if it were an insect. Lena reacted on instinct. She dropped to her knees, curling her body around Scout, taking the blow herself. The heel struck her hip. Hard, she winced in pain. Scout whimpered, trembling violently. The entire cafe gasped. Harold scoffed. "Maybe now she'll learn to follow orders." And that's when the chair in the back corner scraped against the floor. A tall, broad-shouldered man stood up slowly. He wore a plain gray t-shirt stretched across a muscular frame, a black cap pulled low, and eyes that carried the weight of places most people could never imagine. He walked with the calm, controlled steps of someone who had spent years training not to panic, even in the face of death. His name was Ethan Cole, recently returned from deployment, a decorated Navy SEAL, and a man who believed that protecting the helpless was the highest form of honor. He had seen the entire incident, but more importantly, he had heard the cry. He approached quietly, but every step made the rich couple stiffen. He didn't shout, he didn't threaten. His presence alone changed the temperature of the room. Ethan crouched beside Lena, his voice low, steady, protective. "Are you hurt?" Lena shook her head even though she clearly was. Her eyes burned with humiliation, fear, and pain, not just physical but emotional. Scout whimpered and crawled deeper into her arms. Ethan slowly stood and turned to face the Malverns. "Did you just kick her?" Harold straightened, trying to regain dominance. "It was a mistake. She shouldn't have had an animal." Ethan cut him off with a cold stare sharper than any blade. "You kicked a girl and tried to kick a puppy. That is not a mistake." Cassandra found her voice again, dripping with entitlement. "Who do you think you are? You don't speak to us like that." Ethan didn't blink. "I'm the person who will make sure you understand consequences." The silence fell like a heavy curtain. The cafe owner rushed over, apologizing frantically to Ethan, urging everyone to calm down. But Cassandra was already on the warpath, threatening lawsuits, calling Lena pathetic, and insisting she be fired immediately. Lena's face crumpled. She needed this job. She needed the money. The idea of losing everything because she saved her puppy made her heart ache. Ethan stepped between the Malverns and Lena, blocking their view of her like a human shield. "You're not firing anyone," he said firmly. Then he turned to Harold and Cassandra. "You're leaving." Harold's face turned red. "We'll have you arrested. We're friends with the mayor." Ethan lowered his voice to a calm, chilling tone. "I've faced men who use fear as a weapon. It never works on me." Cassandra tugged Harold's sleeve. "Let's go. This place is disgusting anyway." They stormed out, leaving behind a room filled with relieved exhalations. But the real story began after they left. Ethan helped Lena to her feet and examined her bruise with gentle concern. "You should get this checked." "I'm fine," she whispered. Scout licked her fingers as if apologizing for all the trouble. But Ethan noticed her trembling. She wasn't fine at all. Customers who had witnessed everything began approaching Lena, offering sympathy, outrage, and support. Some even offered tips to help her with Scout's care. For the first time in a long while, Lena felt seen, valued, and protected. Ethan stayed behind, helping clean tables, carrying trays, and making sure Lena didn't overexert herself. What surprised her most was that he didn't treat her like a victim. He treated her like a brave person who had protected someone weaker than herself. Later, as the cafe emptied and Scout slept peacefully in his basket, Ethan walked Lena home. He learned about her struggles, her brother, her long hours, her determination, and she learned that behind Ethan's stoic exterior was a man fighting his own battles, struggling with flashbacks, loneliness, and the difficulty of adjusting to civilian life. Two wounded souls crossing paths in the most unexpected way. Their friendship didn't begin with grand gestures, but with simple kindness, sharing stories, caring for Scout together, and helping each other heal in small everyday ways. But fate wasn't done weaving its threads yet. A few days later, they received news that shook the entire cafe. The Malverns had filed a formal complaint, not against Lena, but against the cafe itself, trying to get it shut down for health violations. It was a power move meant to scare everyone. But Ethan had a plan. He gathered witnesses, video footage from customers, and medical documents showing Lena's injury. Then he presented it all to local authorities, who didn't appreciate the Malverns lying to them. The wealthy couple found themselves facing charges instead: animal cruelty, harassment, and filing false reports. Justice finally shifted in the right direction. The cafe stayed open. Lena kept her job. Scout grew stronger every day, and Ethan became a regular visitor, sometimes for coffee, sometimes for company, sometimes just to sit quietly with Scout on his lap, as if the little puppy was the only therapy he ever needed. The story eventually became something whispered with admiration throughout the town, how a wealthy couple tried to crush a helpless girl, not knowing a silent protector was watching from the shadows, a protector who wouldn't let cruelty win. And how that moment of pain became the beginning of healing. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. It helps us bring you more stories filled with courage and kindness. Before you leave, drop a comment. Kindness always wins.